Welcome. I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. I am once again delighted to see that so many of you already have your notepads and pens handy without me even having to mention it. So I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to mention that I want you to take notes and that I want you to make a commitment to jot down some sort of action item. I promise I'm not going to mention it at the beginning of this video like I do at the beginning of all videos. You know, that's what this is all about. Implementation to drive your business forward. Let me ask you a question. Are you in denial? About what are you in denial? About what important things are you currently in denial? I would argue that we are all, to some extent, in denial about something. And that's what I want to explore a little bit today, because denial is not a healthy situation and it is adversely affecting your business. So let's make sure that we eliminate those areas of denial that may be preventing us from moving forward in our business. So I was thinking about this and I was brainstorming some various things that I've observed, maybe either personally or in members of my team or in other management teams that I've associated with or my clients, and just some things that people seem to be in denial about, these concepts. And I just want you to explore some of those. So today's homework assignment is for you to do that introspection, for you to look inwardly and ask yourself, what things may you be in denial about? Now, I know that Tony Robbins likes to talk about limiting beliefs, and that if we can eliminate these limiting beliefs, we can be so much more successful. And I'm not going to argue that point. I would say that sometimes limiting beliefs can be empowering. They can be necessary. That is when they are accurate. Because sometimes you do have a strong grasp of a particular reality that is facing you, and you have a belief about that, and it may be limiting in terms of a direction that you might otherwise try to pursue. And I don't think that's really what he is referring to. I don't think he'd argue that point with me. More than that, though, I would say the absence of a particular belief is very detrimental in some cases. So if you are facing some sort of reality and you are in denial about it, then that can really hinder your progress, because what it does is it prevents you from mitigating against that particular situation because you're in denial about it. There's no need to assign any remedy. There is no need to strategize and put together an improvement plan if you're in denial about something. So let's take a look at what sort of things. So I've come across this one recently where a person's in denial about the fact that technology is advancing fast enough and maybe replacing certain individuals, certain roles, certain tasks, and this kind of thing. So you may be thinking to yourself, you know, technology is never going to replace me. And, you know, that may be true. You may say, that's a limiting belief for me to think that technology could ever replace me. But is it possible that that's actually what is occurring? And we all can accept, to a particular extent, there are some parts of our roles that technology is replacing. And thank goodness they are, because often what people work on and develop technology is to get rid of those tedious things that we don't maybe enjoy doing. But look in your business, and I wonder if your product or service or something vital to the health of your business is being replaced by technology, but you're in denial about that. Or technology is completely changing your market, your industry, and your products or services need to adapt to that and take advantage of these new technologies. Otherwise, your business may fail. So start to look at these things. Once again, your homework assignment is to look at what things you're in denial about. What is it that you may have been denying? The writing may be on the wall, so to speak, and you are just, and maybe people are tipping you off about this. People important to you, other stakeholders are saying to you, I'm concerned about this or that or the other thing, and you are ignoring them. You're saying no, because there's this powerful instinct that we have for self-preservation, And sometimes that can manifest as a symptom of denial, where it's just easier to accept that something isn't going to happen than to try to plan for it, or to accept that it is going to happen. And what will that mean? Especially if we don't have the answers, especially if we're not sure what should we do, what do we need to do to mitigate against these circumstances. And think about that. I mean, that's just flawed logic. You should not, live in a state of denial simply because you don't have the ideas right now, right in front of your eyes right now, to solve the problem that you're facing. In fact, what I'd ask you to do is try to consider some things that people may have presented to you in the past, or thoughts that occurred to you that you dismissed, and you didn't think of yourself as being in denial, but you certainly did deny, because the inference of being in denial is that something is maybe accurate, it is true, and you're in denial. That's what we mean when we talk about a person being in denial. But maybe you have denied certain things, or that is to say, you have rejected concepts and ideas that others have put forth, or maybe that have popped in your mind, and you didn't accept that you were in denial because you just thought to yourself, well, this isn't true. I want you to brainstorm those kind of things and ask yourself again, as a healthy exercise, is it possible? Are these things possible? And if they were, what could I do? How much planning would I need? What resources would I need to set aside to be able to contend with that? Who would I need to consult in order for us to plan around the inevitability if that were true? And this will be a very healthy exercise, because what it'll do, it'll become empowering to you, because these thoughts, these threats to your business, even if you don't accept them as necessarily being real, you're sort of insuring against them because you're planning for the worst. Remember, we want to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Let's cover a few more examples of what I've seen out there. How about this one? My competition is better than me. Well, no, they're not. My competition isn't better than me. They couldn't be. These guys are new to the market. I've been doing this for X number of years. I know exactly what I'm doing. The competition is no better than me. Maybe you're hearing feedback from, like I said, stakeholders. It could be your staff who are a little bit threatened by the competition, or it could be your customers that are saying, hey, I had a good experience with X, Y, or Z particular company, and you're in denial about that. What about your competition? Is it possible that your competition, at least in some ways, are better than you? Look at that and ask yourself, are you in denial about that? And just accept, just for the sake of argument, say, yeah, let's assume they are better than me. In what ways are they better than me? What can I do to mitigate against that? What resources? Who do I need to collaborate with? What else? What other areas may be in denial about? What about your product or service value may be diminishing? Maybe throughout many years of your career and in your business, you've always been convinced that your product or service offers substantial value in the marketplace, and maybe it has been true for this many years, but things do change. We all can think of at least one business or one product or service that is no longer relevant in the marketplace. Maybe they're completely out of business because it stayed the same while new entrants into the market offered different value that was more embraced by the market, and therefore it was better value. Is it that your product or service may have diminishing value? Are you in denial about that? When is the last time you looked to innovate your product or service, to add better value in some way? Whether you were improving your customer experience, whether you were improving the convenience, adding more convenience, improving the quality of the ingredients of the end product or service that you produce, increased in quality that was measurable. When was the last time that you looked at pricing and made sure that your pricing was even more competitive than it was before? In some way, is it possible that your product or service is diminishing in value and you're in denial about that? Here's one that I've brought up before. My customers are not loyal. Maybe someone has said that to you. Your customers are not loyal. And you're in denial about that. You're like, no, my customers are loyal. These guys have been dealing with me for many, many years, and they're very loyal, and I value their loyalty. I don't question that you would value someone's loyalty. A customer loyalty is a great thing. That's invaluable. But remember, Peter Drucker is the one that said that increasingly, well, I'm not going to quote him directly, I don't have it in front of me, but it was something along the lines of that customer loyalty is diminishing year over year, and any efforts to reverse that trend will be in vain. That's something very close to a quote from Peter Drucker. And this guy's smarter than me, and he's smarter than a lot of us, and he has a lot of insights into business. So if you are in denial that your customers are less loyal than they once were, what are you doing about that? Again, today's exercise, explore that possibility, accept it as if it were true, and ask yourself, what can I do to mitigate against this? Of course, in that instance, you may need to conquest new customers. You may need to offer value in a different way to the market so that you can pick up customers that you've never had before, because your customers are going to shop elsewhere. Maybe you're going to have to look for ways of adding value. Maybe you're going to have to lower your price, something like that. Ask yourself these questions and explore that. So if you do eventually accept this, maybe it's no longer about a case of the writing being on the wall. It is now self-evident. It is in your face. Your revenues are falling. Your profitability is being challenged, and you now understand why. Maybe you have the data in front of you. It's now inarguable. What are you going to do about that? Now is the time to plan for that. What things are you in denial about? What else? What about the size of your market? Your market is shrinking. Are you in denial about that? Is your market shrinking or growing? You know, you hear these various shows like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, where these entrepreneurs go in front of the sharks or the dragons or whatever, depends if you're in Canada, the United States, where you're watching that show, or they're going in front of some sort of venture capitalist, and they're looking to raise money for their company, and they're sharing their business ideas. And so often they quote unrealistic market expectations, like, if we could just capture 1% of this huge market, this is how much revenue we would generate. And it's like, well, okay, that's great. Anyone can say, if I did this, that, or the other with a particular percentage of the market, we would make lots of money. People often have unrealistic expectations of their market share. Do you know your market share? Have you been comfortable with it? And is it possibly shrinking? And you're in denial about that because you're not measuring it. Is your market shrinking? And what are you going to do about that? You're going to see a theme here. The same things need to happen. You need to innovate your business. You need to add more value. You need to measure. Here's one that could be incendiary. You're not as good as you used to be. Are you as good as you used to be? Are your products and services as good as they used to be? You know, I talked about maybe the market is perceiving your product or service's value as being less, and maybe the quality has been there all along. What if your product or service are actually getting lower? We've all had maybe a favorite restaurant or some sort of product or service that it's just not the same over time. And it's not that we've changed or our tastes have changed. They've allowed their quality or their customer service to slip in some way, and you're not as good as you used to be. They are not as good as they used to be. Are you in denial about that? What about you personally and your skills? Maybe your management skills. Maybe you're not as good as you used to be. Maybe you're a little less tolerant than you once were. Maybe you're set in ways and you're not adapting, and your team has changed. Maybe you have new team members who don't work in the same way that people did in years gone by, and you're not readily adapting to that in your management style. In what ways are you not as good as you used to be? I don't want to be negative and have you, focus on a bunch of limiting beliefs again, but I want you to be careful not to be in denial about things that may be true. So once again, this goes back to data and measurement. In what way are you measuring to know whether you're as good as you used to be? Think of a professional a professional athlete. So this concept of a limiting belief, we'd never want, as you're, pursuing a career in anything, to think that, to lose confidence and think that you're not good enough. That's more of a limiting belief. But what if the facts are that you are getting not better? Said that backwards. What if the facts are that you are not getting better? What if the measurements show that you are actually not as good as you once were? We all know that there is a shelf life, so to speak, for professional athletes. At a certain age, they're not performing like they once did, and there are measurements to back that up, and eventually they have to retire. They may get injured more, their bodies aren't holding up. there are realities in this world that affect your ability to perform. Are you as good as you used to be? Let's look at that and ask ourselves, okay, am I in denial about this? What can I do to ensure that I'm mitigating against that so that my business, my products, my services, the stakeholders in my business, my customers do not suffer as the result of me not being as good as I used to be, as a result of something that I'm in denial about. In fact, on that last one, I would say that some people are in denial about the fact they never were good at a particular thing. They may have always thought they were good at something and they weren't particularly good at it. They just didn't have a frame of reference and they didn't have alternatives. So maybe they engaged in something and they fancied themselves fairly good at it, and it wasn't, a deal breaker for their business, and so they suffered through things. They succeeded in spite of the fact that they weren't particularly good at something, but now there are technological or other alternatives that they could look at. So again, if you go through this exercise and this introspection and ask yourself and challenge yourself, throw down the gauntlet and say, yeah, actually, maybe I've never been good at this particular thing that I've done all along. And it's probably something that you don't enjoy that much, but it may be something that you do enjoy. Ask yourself and say, just for the sake of argument, once again, I was never good at this. What could I do about that? What should I do about that? In many of these cases, you can look to cheaper alternatives, and things like our company didn't exist at one point, and we pivoted over the years and how Bickert Management offers its services, but it wasn't until very recently that you could purchase individual services from us as opposed to our entire general management package. So as one example is, if you were always recruiting and you were handling your own HR, you might have thought, oh no, I know how to interview, I know how to write a job and employment posting or ad, and I know how to pick somebody who's good. But when you really dig into it, you had nothing to compare to, and it turns out, no, actually, maybe you weren't very good at talent acquisition, at recruitment, at hiring. Maybe you weren't very good at onboarding or training or performance analytics and measurements and performance evaluations and reviews with people, all the various things that are really imperative to good human resource and getting the best return on investment of your people. Maybe you've never been good at that, but you've been in denial about that. Well, now you have an alternative. So if you brainstorm, okay, of course, I've got a vested interest in having you reach out to us and having us do that for you. But that's the key today that I want you to do, is challenge yourself and ask yourself, what could I do if this was a problem? And then ask others. Make sure you don't just do this. I've been talking about this introspection, and that's sort of more something you need to do when you're the one who's in denial. But maybe you're also having thoughts that are creeping up and you think your organization is culturally in denial. Maybe the other stakeholders are in denial about this because we don't want to accept the writing on the wall. We don't want to accept the trajectory that we're on. So collaborate with your team. Get your heads together. Put your heads together. Get together in a room or in a virtual conference, something like this, and ask yourself, are we on the right track? Look at your plan. Are we going where we intend to go? Or are we off track? And what do we need to do? And what sort of, well, you can ask yourself about limiting beliefs, but what denial are we in? What things are we in denial that we really need to address because we've been putting them on the back burner, setting them aside for too long? This is a great exercise to go through, and you should do this periodically. Forward this video to other members of your team so that they know you're going to do this. Say, hey, take a listen to this. I'd like to get together and I want to do this. And let's brainstorm some areas of denial that we might be facing, and let's mitigate against that. Let's overcome this. Let's have a culture where we're not in denial. We accept the premise. You don't have to just agree with everything. Every time somebody makes a negative comment that you hear that there may be a risk, some sort of threat to your business, you don't have to say, yeah, well, that's real. You can still evaluate, and sometimes you can deny that the threat is real. You can say, no, it's not real. We have the data to back it up. What I'm challenging you on today is where maybe the data and all of the indications are showing you one thing, but you're in denial about it because you don't want to accept it. It hurts. The truth hurts. You don't want to accept, and that's going to drag you down. Okay, so I don't want to put you in a negative frame of mind, you'll be in a positive frame of mind, realizing, no, what we're going to do is we're going to solve these problems. And that's what business owners do. That's what entrepreneurs are notorious for, that you're so good at reacting to those adverse conditions, to those detrimental factors that put your business in peril or threaten your viability and sustainability, your profitability. So I think that's where I want to leave it today. I hope you got something out of this. And if you did, then leave a comment and let me know what resonates with you. If you didn't get something out of this, you'd like me to get more specific, or you challenge, you push back on this, you think this isn't a good place to go, this is not a good mental exercise, whatever, I'm curious about what you think about these things, and I'm happy to engage in a discussion. And when you leave a comment, we all learn, and we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.